And we are live. My name is Mark,
My name's Mark.
and this is the M&M Show, where we'll discuss, we'll recap Week 9 of fantasy football and start getting ready for Week 10. How'd your weekend go, Mark?
Could have been better. Made some 7 and 8 man parlays that, of course, did not hit. I kind of have to stop with that, but otherwise, it was pretty good. Some good games over the weekend. How about you?
Yeah, good as well. Actually, really good. I think I've had one of my best week. I've had my best week since last year. So, and a lot of that is because of Chase Brown and some others. So, I really can't wait to get into it. And yeah, why don't we start off with the embarrassing stuff too? How'd your predictions go?
I'll start off with the embarrassing because that's all I have. I didn't have any correct predictions again this week. At the end of our last episode, I said that Tyler Algier would outscore Bijan Robinson against the Cowboys. That did not happen. Bijan had 18 points. Tyler Algier didn't even get 8. So that was a miss. And then I thought Justin Jefferson was going to have a bounce back game. He did. I predicted 120 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. He got almost 140 yards, no touchdowns. That's kind of a big part of the prediction. How about you?
Yeah, again, the bold predictions. We try to go for big predictions and hope to get them right, but the luck's not quite there on our side yet. I think I got like a quarter of my prediction correct, which doesn't mean it's right, but yeah, 1 touchdown from London, even though he didn't finish the game. So that was tough to see. And then again, Caleb Williams just getting crushed along with the Chicago Bears by the Arizona Cardinals. So, Arizona is making it work somehow. And I thought Caleb Williams indoors in a dome stadium would the throwing would help him out, but completely missed it.
Yeah, we don't get partial credit for our bold predictions. I don't get partial credit for my parlays either. So
I'll try to justify some things, but it's not right in the end of the day. So we'll keep working at it. But let's jump into some winners. So you want to start off with some quarterbacks?
yeah, you say quarterbacks. I only had one for this week that really stood out, and that was Patrick Mahomes. We've spent week after week, talking about how bad he's been for fantasy football. Last week, or actually Monday, was the first time all year he has not thrown an interception in a game, which by itself is a win. But he actually played well. He had the second most yards he's had all season. He threw for 3 touchdowns. He's QB3 for week 9. So if you've held on to Patrick Mahomes, if you started him against all hope, he probably, he put up good numbers and he might have helped you win your week.
Yeah, especially on a Monday night when everything's closing up. But yeah, he had a sensational game. Again, just making some ridiculous plays. And, that connection with DeAndre Hopkins just looking pretty good. It's not up to the best it could be, but it's damn good. And I'm excited to see what Hopkins is able to do moving forward. I love Patrick Mahomes as a winner. I myself just had 1, 2. Joe Burrow. It's his second 5 touchdown performance this year. And surprisingly, no touchdown passes to Jamar Chase. Can you believe that?
I can't. I mean, it happened, so it's tough to deny, but that was tough for Jamar Chase owners, and we can touch on that later. Really quick on Joe Burrow, since, like you said, it's the second 5 touchdown passing game he's had all season. Would you rather take Joe Burrow or Kirk Cousins?
I own both in our Dynasty League. However, if I had to pick one moving forward for the rest of the season, I have more confidence in Joe Burrow. It seems like the Cincinnati Bengals, that they're in a worse position than the Falcons. And so just naturally, Joe Burrow is going to have to throw the ball to make sure the Bengals can win. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I ask that because Kirk Cousins had a tough week 1, and he's since really picked it up for the most part over the course of the season. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals as a whole had a slow start as well. I do not have Joe Burrow on any of my fantasy teams, but I feel like I'd be scarred and I'd be a little concerned about starting him, especially with the sheer number of quarterbacks in the league that can put up 15 plus points on any given week.
Yeah, it's a tough division too, so something to consider as well. Who do you have as your losing quarterback?
I've got Kyler Murray. I mean, we talked about the Bears and the Cardinals game really quickly just now, but Kyler Murray had a disappointing week 9. I expected a higher scoring game between them and the Bears. The Bears have a strong defense, but also a lot of talented pass catchers. Figured maybe Caleb Williams had a bounce back game. Kyler Murray himself fell flat. 13 passes on 20 attempts. Barely cracked 150 yards. No touchdowns. Limited rushing. That's something you look for with Kyler Murray. Didn't really get a lot of opportunities or yardage. And a costly turnover. So you're starting Kyler Murray week over week, and you know he let you down if you had him on your team this week.
Agreed. Not a lot of confidence in Kyler Murray. And it's funny, too, when I saw the result for this game, I just immediately thought Kyler Murray has to have had a good game if, they blew out the Bears the way they did, but that was not the case. As for my loser, I have Jordan Love playing against the Detroit Lions. 1 interception for a pick 6 and 3 fumbles. So very bad outing. He did have an injury concern this past week with the groin strain. But the good news is that they're going into the bye week, which allows them to recover, and hopefully we can see some of the magic that Jordan Love has produced over the last year.
Yeah, and unlike the Cardinals and Bears, they played outdoors and in the rain. So I think that might have had something to do with it. But anytime you have any player with 4 turnovers, that's got to leave you frustrated.
Yep. I've been high on the Packers, so, more was expected. But the Lions are a damn good football team, and that's how it goes. They're probably Super Bowl bound as far as we know.
Any wild card quarterbacks for you this week?
Yeah, definitely. I really liked what I saw from Justin Herbert. It seems like the Chargers team just knows who they are, right? It's Harbaugh ball. So very balanced in terms of being able to run the ball. And then you have a tremendous quarterback like Herbert who can, make the throws that you need when the time's right. So 280 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. So just a really solid game. It seems like the injury that he suffered earlier in the season was like a high ankle sprain. It doesn't even seem like it's bothering him anymore. So I think there's more to see from Justin Herbert moving forward. And Drake May just returning to injury and, having a solid outing against a pretty good defensive team against quarterbacks. He's just proving more and more that he's a real deal. It might be still a little too soon to, have a good measure on what Drake May can offer you moving forward, but very solid quarterback play if you need a quarterback.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, out of the rookies in this draft class, Drake May had a late start to fantasy football compared to, say, Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, but he's played really well for the most part, at least for fantasy purposes, when he's been in games, better than Jacoby Brissett, but that's not saying a whole lot. With Justin Herbert too, like it seems like he's a little bit injury prone in his career so far, but like you mentioned with a high ankle sprain, it hasn't really impacted him. He's not going to be running as much as Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. So don't expect that to impact him so much. But I do question, beyond just their like offensive philosophy, who's going to catch the ball. They've got Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston. Like if those are your number one and number two receivers, I feel like you're in trouble as a quarterback.
And you have a Joshua Palmer just lurking in there somewhere.
That's a deep flex play.
I agree. Who do you have as your wild card picks?
I've got two. I've got Aaron Rodgers. Similar to the Patrick Mahomes angle, I just didn't have high expectations for him. He had a really rough first half against Houston, and then lit it up in the second half. Finished with 3 touchdowns as well. That's the most for the season for himself. We'll see if that momentum carries over week to week, but he's clicking with Devontae Adams. Garrett Wilson is still getting targets and converting it into some really good games. So that was like a pleasant surprise. The other one was Daniel Jones. Shockingly had a really good game for fantasy. And I say that because in the first half, this is a wild stat. In the first half, he completed 4 passes for a touchdown and 0 passing yards. Like I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how you complete 4 passes and have a passing touchdown for 0 net yards. But he came alive in the second half. He had a rushing touchdown. He had 2 more passing touchdowns. So big performance for Danny Dimes. I don't know if that keeps him in New York, but if you tossed him in as a super flex play or as a quarterback in a pinch, he paid off big time.
Yeah. What I see from Danny Dimes is that he's got some determination to him. He's not gonna back down, right? And the Giants, they're not the most attractive of teams, but they're not half bad at times. They can have their bad moments, but they're also going to surprise you like they did this past weekend, and especially in that first half.
I think that's part of the divide between fantasy football and real life football, right? Like nobody expects the Giants to play super well over the course of the year, but week to week, Devin Singletary or Tyrone Tracy or Malik Neighbors or Darius Slayton will have some big games for you.
Yep. All right, Mark, you ready to talk about some running backs, your favorite section?
Can't wait. I'll kick us off with a positive. I'll start with winners as well. This is a give me, but Saquon Barkley was a winner. I'm putting him up here almost solely on the reverse huddle. I texted you when I saw the highlight. Everyone online is going crazy about it. Professional athletes are going crazy about it. Like just seeing what he did on the field to other grown men was insane. But he also had a huge game. Most scrimmage yards he's had all season, most rushing yards, most receiving yards. He did have a fumble, but I feel like you live with losing 2 points when he gives you 30. And he's a walking highlight reel. So Saquon Barkley was a winner. The other one on here I have is Alvin Kamara. If you were hoping for a touchdown, you didn't get that. You're upset about that. I don't know if I've ever seen a stat line like this. 29 rushes for over 150 yards. He had 6 catches for another 60 yards on 9 targets. A lot of yardage, a lot of points, no touchdowns.
Yeah, that's baffling. And Saquon just the hurdle play was absurd. He has the awareness to know there's somebody coming in from behind after doing a spin move or breaking someone's ankles, and then just ate him up completely.
It wasn't an accident. Like he decided to do that and he pulled it off. And you don't get, bonus points in fantasy for that, but what a play. What a play.
Yeah, we might have to consider doing half a point for hurdles alone just because of that. All right. Well, for me, I have Devon A-Chain again as a fantasy winner because I have him in 3 of my leagues, and he absolutely destroyed it this weekend. Again, thank you, Tua, because we saw A-Chain without Tua, and it's just it's really mid to low starting running back stuff. But now Tua's back, and this guy is just an absolute fantasy superstar. So 8 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. That's the standout stat. So, A-Chain, fantastic for PPR play, even half PPR. And then still on the ground game, 12 rushes for 63 yards and a touchdown. So 2 touchdown day for this guy.
See, I wasn't sure about A-Chain and his involvement in the passing game, but if you go back and you look at the season as a whole, weeks 1 and 2, he had 7 targets and caught all of them. And then last week and this week, he had 8 targets. So I don't know how much to bank on that if you're an A-Chain owner, but yeah, that's a huge plus to his fantasy value.
The only reason why I took him as high as the second round earlier in the year was because before he got hurt last year, I remember he was just an absolute cheat code to have on your team. So I love the explosiveness that he can offer you, but again, it comes with some risks. So, but for now, we're super high on A-Chain. How about losers? You have any losers for us?
I'm only putting one on here. I put Kyron Williams. He's been a standout running back all season long. A little bit touchdown dependent, and that bit him last week. He only had 10 fantasy points. Really inefficient, 22 rushing attempts, and he didn't even crack 70 rushing yards. I think as the Rams offense clicks, and with Puka, Nakua, and Cooper Kupp in play, that'll open opportunities for Kyron Williams, but last week was not it for him. 10 points just isn't cutting it for someone who should be a top 5, maybe top 3 running back.
Yeah. Can't deny that they're top 5 guaranteed. Just a down week for him. I have Jonathan Taylor, 13 rushes for 48 yards, three receptions for 11 yards. So incredibly slow week for this guy. The Colts, in his defense a little bit, the Colts had a bit of a rough matchup going to Minnesota on Sunday Night Football. I expected a closer game, but that's just how it goes when you run into one of the best teams in the National Football League. So, Taylor should be able to bounce back from this one, but just not what you want from your first round running back.
Yeah, especially when he's healthy, right? Like, we're not necessarily worried about an injury that he might be dealing with. So when you have a poor game and you're healthy, it's never promising. But like you said, I think it's just matchup dependent. Vikings were tough.
He's healthy, and it's not Richardson back there who, might take some rushing yards away or might vulture some touchdowns. So there should be, the quarterback situation shouldn't really change much for Jonathan Taylor, I would say. But all right, let's talk some wild card running backs. Who do you have listed on there?
I've got 2 this go around. I've got Chase Brown, partially because Zach Moss is out. The Bengals put him on IR, and he might be done for the season. Some people have talked about it being career-ending neck injury. I doubt it's that. I think that's just the rumor mill. But for Chase Brown, even with that injury aside last week, he had the best day of his young career. He had a ton of volume. He had over 25 rushing attempts, caught all of his passing targets. So Chase Brown isn't someone, I expect to be really in the top 10, maybe top 15 conversation for running backs, but he had a really big game last week. So a little bit out of the blue. And then the only other guy I have on here is Rico Dowdle. The Cowboys offense really is out of sorts. Dak goes down. He's going to miss a couple games, but Rico caught a touchdown to start the game. and he topped 100 scrimmage yards, which is always a big number if you're a running back. That's 10 points on the board.
Yeah, good to see from Rico to be able to produce for the Cowboys, who've been just rather lackluster. He could be somebody to look for in trades just because Dak's not going to be there anymore. So the passing game is going to take a hit, and they might just have to rely a little more on the run game, but it's not looking good for the Cowboys. I myself have Chase Brown too, and in fact, sure, he might have been a wild card, but you know the Cincinnati Bengals, they've been feeding this guy the past couple weeks, and he's been pretty solid if you have him as a flex play, and if you've kept him there, you were rewarded this week and probably won your matchup. So loving what I'm, just loving having this guy on my team who's going to give me at least 10 points a game, and then anything else, any touchdowns, it's just extra change. I have two fluky fellas here. DeMarcado from the Arizona Cardinals and Ray Davis from the Buffalo Bills. Both, just handcuff type of running backs who, they're just going to have their game sometimes. But as for Davis, 4 rushes. We don't even need to talk about the rushing yardage because it was abysmal. 2 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown. So that's that's what led him to be in this wild card pick. And DeMarcado, 4 attempts for 59 rushing yards and a touchdown. So better on the ground, but the 4 attempts, very low. He's just managed to break one run, and sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, I think Ray Davis is a really good pickup if you can get him on the waiver wire. In the event James Cook misses time, he's going to step up in the Bills' backfield, and he's got wheels. Ray Davis can run. For DeMarcado, though, you mentioned him as a cuff. I'm not sure about that because I feel like the Cardinals are going to play Trey Benson behind James Conner before they play DeMarcado. I know he had that huge run to close out the first half. That's what he scored his touchdown on. I'd be very cautious about playing him in any given week,
and that's why you're the running back guru. So let's move more into familiar grounds for me.
Your territory.
Receivers. Yeah.
Go for it.
So I guess as my winners, we're going to give it to the Jets receiving duo. So Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams just devastating the Texans defense in the second half, to be specific. 2 one-handed touchdowns for Garrett Wilson. The second one just being an absolute insane play. When I first saw it, I didn't think it was going to be a touchdown, but you never know with the NFL. So they won't. I'm glad they gave that one to Garrett Wilson because it's awesome for the highlight reel. And then Adams had the clutch touchdown at the end to just pretty much seal the game. He just did the Adams-Rodgers thing they used to do in Green Bay. That happened, so it's awesome to see. 90 yards and 9 receptions for Garrett Wilson, though. So just as I ship him out of one of my teams, this guy is being a complete terror in fantasy football. Any thoughts there for the Jets guys?
Yeah, I know we had questions about what the Jets would look like with Davante Adams joining them, but it seems like it's been a positive for Garrett Wilson. I don't feel like Aaron Rodgers is force-feeding him the ball like he did earlier in the season. Now it's just they've got 2 really talented receivers, and they're clicking with Aaron Rodgers, and it's looking really good. Also, you mentioned earlier maybe instituting a half point for hurdles after Saquon Barkley did what he did. I feel like you have to do the same thing for spectacular catches. Like what Garrett Wilson did, the jump man, one-handed grab. You got to give a little plus up for that.
I love the way you're thinking because, this is definitely going to be remembered for next year when we start up, one of our new leagues. So, good looks there. You
Who
know,
else
and
you
just
got?
to
Or go
allude,
go for it.
yeah, just to allude a little bit to the point you made there, where these guys might not be affecting each other. We sort of talked about that maybe 2 episodes ago after the trade happened. Um, However, I was just reluctant to keep Wilson in at least one of my team, like just kind of offload a little bit just in case, because you just don't know what the Jets, right? It still doesn't feel great, but it's just better to see what they're able to produce. Um, Two more winners for me, real quick. Darnell Mooney, one of your favorite guys that uh, you know you do like a lot. You have on a few teams. Um, 88 yards, 5 receptions. He stepped up for an injured Drake London. So I'm starting to be a believer in Mooney. And then, of course, my last winner, DeAndre Hopkins. He's already the number one receiver, aside from Travis Kelce in that offense. And again, the connection with Mahomes looking pretty nifty.
Yeah, I'm big on Darnell Mooney. I have been big on him for most of the season, right? Drake London is the number one receiver on that Falcons offense, but Mooney's just really clicking with Kirk Cousins. And I feel like that goes a long way when it comes to having opportunities and then making the most of them. Um, Similar situation with D Hop, right? He comes into the Chiefs, he plays on a short week, doesn't do super well, plays again this past week, 2 touchdowns. You got to be happy about that.
Yep. Let's hear your receiving winner.
Yeah, the only one I have on here is Zay Flowers. He's been playing really, really well this season, in large part because Lamar Jackson is passing super efficiently. But he hasn't really gotten touchdowns. I think before this past week, he only had 1 touchdown on the season. Last week, he had 2 touchdowns, both in the first half, and over 100 yards receiving on 6 targets. Just really, really efficient stuff from Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson. And, even with the Ravens picking up another pass catcher, even with multiple tight ends and Rashad Bateman lurking in the background, Zay Flowers is like the clear number one receiver for the Ravens when they do pass the ball.
Absolutely. Year two, just really starting to break out. So, if it's one guy you may have to try to look to get on your team before for the late fantasy season push. Let's talk some losing receivers. You want to start us off with them?
Sure. To kick it off, I've got Jamar Chase. We're talking about big name guys that kind of fell short. He's one of them. He had the volume. You mentioned earlier, too, that Joe Burrow threw 5 touchdowns. None of them went to Jamar Chase. That really hurts. But beyond that, just like a poor game for him. 11 targets. He caught 7 of those for 43 yards. That's, what is that? 6 yards a catch. That's awful. For Jamar Chase, that's awful.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, you're a Jamar Chase owner, so it just adds to the pain a little bit, does it?
No. That was formerly. I shipped Jamar Chase off for spare parts. So I'm pretty happy about that trade right now. When Jamar Chase goes off for 30 points next week, I'll regret it.
Yeah. Sounds good.
The
I have Brian Thomas Jr. as my first loser. He's been awesome this past year, so super reliable thus far. However, we had a speed bump here with Brian Thomas Jr. 91% snaps for Brian Thomas, yet he only had 4 targets for 20 yards and 2 receptions. So I'm pretty sure one of these targets had to have been a long ball going towards the end zone, or at least one end zone throw from Trevor Lawrence, but couldn't salvage his day with a touchdown. So in addition to that, I do have AJ Brown as a loser just because he did get hurt during the matchup. It's not a serious knee injury, but it definitely could have cost some people their fantasy matchups. And luckily, it did not cost me my fantasy matchup. And Marvin Harrison Jr., just a tough matchup versus the Bears. And coming up next are the Jets for Marvin Harrison Jr. So it's going to be another tough one, or, we may see a shootout. So would love to try to target MHJ while I can.
Yeah, a couple big names, I think, for our losers, for wide receivers. And for like all these guys, it's not the end of the world that they have poor showings, but especially in deeper leagues, or if you're reliant on them as your number one receiver, these kind of weeks really, really do come back to haunt you. Though one other loser I had was Xavier Worthy. Not a big name. He's not at the same level as Jamar Chase or AJ Brown, but when you put up negative points, you're going to get our attention as a potential loser. And that's what he did. I didn't catch either of the passes thrown his way. Rushed twice for negative 10 yards. Yeah, just a tough week for him.
Yeah. In his defense, he did have, he should have had a reception for about 40 yards or so, 35 yards. And it should have been a touchdown too, but the rookie just couldn't keep his feet in. And, he looked a little more ridiculous, backpedaling, thinking he had the touchdown too. So, I mean, I expect more from former Longhorn, to say the least. But, he's just going through those rookie motions, and I still like him for an end of the season play, especially if more attention starts going towards D-Hop and Kelsey. I think then things can open up for Xavier Worthy, and I will die on that hill.
No, the potential is there, and we've seen glimpses of it all season. But I think as someone who keeps riding on the potential, when it doesn't, when it doesn't come through, it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah. And this is why you're not the receiver guy, you got to know when to pick the times. Awesome.
I see we've got the same wild card. Do you want to kick us off with those?
Yeah, definitely. My first wild card, JSN, number one receiver for fantasy football, surprisingly. And then I also had Cortland Sutton. I'll dive into Cortland Sutton just because I love my Broncos, so I have to talk about them. One touchdown pass to Bo Nix to try to keep it a close game. Second game with 100 yards receiving in a row. However, there's a tough matchup versus the Chiefs coming up, but it's not impossible. If anything, what I saw with the Chiefs defense in the second half, they looked a little shaky, especially with Baker. He was just waiting for his opportunity in overtime to kill this game off, and he very much could have. However, if the Chiefs get a good start to the game, it's probably likely not going to be a good day for Denver. But it's just about trying to get these guys tired. So let's see what Cortland Sutton can do next weekend.
Yeah, if the Broncos do fall behind quickly in that game against the Chiefs, though, they'll probably be passing more. So that could bode well for Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton. We'll see. One quick note for Jackson Smith and Jigma is he wasn't just the number one receiver last week. He was the number one flex play across all non-QB positions. He had monster game. And I think we expected him or Tyler Lockett or maybe Kenneth Walker III to step up with DK Metcalf out last week, but nothing like what he did.
Yeah, absolutely. Just monstrous performance. One I couldn't see coming in a million years, but it finally happened. So JSN, you're back on the radar. Still want to see a little more, but for now, we'll take it. Let's talk some tight ends then. So, why don't you kick us off? Who's your winner?
Yeah, tight ends are in a much better state, I feel like, as the season has gone on. The one winner I have to call out is Cade Otton again. I had the same guy last week. He was tight end 2 this week, It's his third straight game with double-digit targets, and Baker Mayfield is clearly leaning on him with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out. I made a note on here. I just feel like there's a potential for him to be a consistent flex play, which to me sounds insane given the state of tight ends this year. But if he's getting 11 targets a game, if he's getting red zone looks, that's someone that reliably could get you, anywhere from 10 to 14 points a week. And that's prime flex candidate, in my opinion.
I love that Kate Otten take. Just to add a little more to that, if you were watching the game, this guy should have had 2 touchdowns because, yeah, he got the red zone look, straight up goal line look. Little out pass from Baker, low pass where nobody else can get it but him. He barely just missed that catch, but looking like a real great play. I agree. 2 winners for myself in the tight end position. I'm going to give it to Travis Kelce. If you've held on to him thus far, you're finally getting rewarded. So an outstanding just 16 target, 14 reception for a 100-yard game. Just missing a touchdown, which would have capped it off, but that's all right. That's more than enough receptions to, make up for a touchdown. And Hunter Henry, at least 5 receptions for 80 yards in the last 3 games. So a real solid just tight end play from Henry. And just to allude to, because I had a similar take with Zach Ertz last week, just trying to find like a consistent value guy that you could play in every week. Zach Ertz was another incorrect prediction from me. So instead of Zach Ertz, let's scratch that. It's now Hunter Henry.
I feel like Drake May stepping up has been a revelation for Hunter Henry. And I like tight ends and running backs that can catch out of the backfield for rookie quarterbacks, looking for those, safety valves. But yeah, Hunter Henry had a good game last week. Travis Kelce too. 16 targets is nasty business. I know he's the number 1 target for Mahomes on almost any given play. At least that's what it feels like. But yeah, you got to be happy if you held on to him, kept starting him to get those returns that you invested in your draft.
Yeah, he nearly had a touchdown actually. He just had 3 guys who it took 3 guys to keep him away from running into the end zone. So, yeah, touchdown should be on the way. Yeah, speaking of Zach Ertz, I know I alluded to him. I just didn't realize he was my loser for this week until now. So just one more stat to go along with that. 48% snaps versus the Giants. Probably because, the Commanders, they probably had that game just pretty locked up at some point. So you just didn't really need Zach Ertz in the passing game. Yeah, who's your losers?
Yeah, I've got 2, David Njoku and then Dalton Kincaid with the Browns and the Bills, respectively. Neither of them were atrocious. It was just really inefficient. Njoku had 5 catches on 7 targets, but he only converted that for 29 yards. And Dalton Kincaid, 4 catches on 10 targets, 32 yards catching. Just bad numbers. If you got points per target, they would be even more valuable. They will have better games week to week, but yeah, week 9 was not it for either of them.
Yeah, I know you're more of a half PPR guy, so yeah, those performances, those half points really take away from the 5 receptions the tight end could get, right? So, for my case, I would see 5 receptions since I'm a PPR guy, right? Being a receiver guy, I'd see 5 receptions, and it's like a salvageable day for a tight end, right? But yeah, I could see why that's not the case for you. I've also been off the Dalton Kincaid wagon for a minute too, just after the slow start to the season, and yeah, Buffalo was missing the Diggs #1 receiver presence to start, so I think that kind of affected Kincaid, but
Yeah.
and no Cooper too this past weekend. So that might have also played a factor as well.
And with the Bills too, there's always the potential for Knox to come in and get a red zone look instead of Kincaid. So that hurts his value too. Njoku isn't really dealing with competition at the tight end position. You got guys like Cedric Tillman or Jerry Jeudy who are popping off who might compete for targets. But yeah, that's just a quick note for Kincaid and the Bills in general.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk wild card picks then. I only have one here, so cover this real quick. Another Longhorn for you all, Jatavion Sanders, making his name and presence known in the fantasy realm. So 4 receptions for 87 yards, helping Bryce Young look good and, getting a win with the Carolina Panthers. So he also saw an 85% snap share. So that's a good sign to see. But again, they had to throw the ball, and Jatavion's one of those receiving tight ends. So yeah, hoping he can replicate it again sometime this year.
Yeah, I know I'm a casual fan because I have no idea who that is. It took you saying helping Bryce Young for me to be like, oh, okay, Panthers player. Yeah.
Yep,
Do not
you're
do not
welcome.
know who he is. Do not know his snap percentage count, how many targets he's had. Couldn't tell you a lick about him.
Should have watched a little more Longhorn football last year. That's all I'll say.
They weren't in the SEC. My one wild card tight end this past week was Taysom Hill. Really, the only reason he's on here is because he got a rushing touchdown when Alvin Kamara didn't. But Taysom Hill, gadget player, you never know what he's going to do on the Saints offense, and the Saints need him on offense. They're down Chris Olave. They're down Rashid Shaheed. Derek Carr isn't playing super, super well. So there's a potential for Taysom Hill to get some receiving yards, maybe a pass play here or there, and some goal line work. So something to keep an eye on. Some decent value for Taysom Hill, but nothing outstanding.
Yep, absolutely. Sweet. Well, that covers our winners, losers, and wild cards. So, do you have any trade targets in mind that you're looking to acquire and get on your fantasy teams?
Yeah, now we get to the fun part. 2 of these guys are already on my team or on some of my teams, but I'll throw them out there. I think Darnell Mooney is worth trying to pick up. He might be a little expensive after this past week, and with Drake London missing the back half of that game. I don't think Drake London is expected to miss any time. I think he's expected to play this week, but that's a receiver I would target if I did not have Darnell Mooney. Another receiver as well, I think that has some upside is George Pickens. The Pittsburgh Steelers were desperate for additional receivers, and they got Mike Williams from the Jets. I don't think that's going to change the landscape too much, but Russell Wilson is getting better in this offense. Having another pass catcher opposite of George Pickens should give him some better looks. So Darnell Mooney, George Pickens, I don't think they're going to be, game changers, but could be some solid pickups if you are lacking receivers.
Absolutely. I think George Pickens is super solid and a good call out. Someone who, shouldn't really be worth, too much value, right? But, there's definitely something there. And hopefully Mike Williams can help the situation a little more and open up the field for someone like George Pickens. I have a couple receivers too here. It's funny how you have receivers as your targets too, but I'll put Xavier Worthy in here just because it was such an abysmal fantasy performance. So it could be a time to try to get this guy on your team for absolutely just dirts. So, and then DJ Moore too, another bad performance, right, against the Cardinals. Again, it could be just a Caleb Williams thing, but I think the later half of the season or the last half of the season is looking pretty good in terms of matchups for the Chicago Bears receivers. So I'm willing to take a chance on DJ Moore.
Yeah, DJ Moore scares me a little bit, just because on the field he seems to be whatever chemistry he may have had with Caleb Williams seems like it's dying. So that's not something that shows up in the box score per se, but it gives me pause. As someone who has DJ Moore, I'd be scared to sell him. If I didn't have DJ Moore, I don't know how I'd be about buying him. But yeah, worth keeping an eye out.
Yeah, for sure. Again, just something to maybe take a chance on if you're desperate, or if you're looking for a win and you need to upgrade in receiver. It could be a good time to take a chance on this guy. As for just a couple of running backs here, I have Bucky Irving and Jonathan Taylor. Of course, Taylor with the bad performance this past week, rightly so, as we have him as a loser. And then Irving wasn't too impressive too, so it's just one of those times where it's like maybe you could get this guy a little low, and you just got to talk to the owner, see how they're feeling, and then see if you can work out a deal.
Yeah, just a quick note for running backs. Someone to potentially sell as opposed to buy would be J.K. Dobbins. He just had the best fantasy game he's had all season. I think he put up 24 points. He had like 80+ yards and 2 touchdowns. Some tougher matchups around the playoffs. The Chargers play Chiefs, Bucks, and then Denver Broncos weeks 14, 15, 16. So if you have J.K. Dobbins, maybe try to flip him for another running back and some spare change, or just something to keep in mind as the season goes on and the schedule gets a little harder.
Yep. I like that. I might just buy Dobbins from you somewhere. We'll see. Great. So just to close off the episode then, you have any bold predictions for us then?
Yeah, I've got 2. I don't know how spicy they are. I'm getting increasingly less bold for fear of more incorrect predictions. But my 2 are that Rachaad White will be the highest fantasy scoring player for Tampa Bay. The Bucks play the 49ers this week, and Rachaad White, I figure, will get more looks out of the backfield than Bucky Irving in this one, and might even convert that into a touchdown or 2. The other person I've got on here is Matthew Stafford. He's low-key gotten better as the season has gone on, and now he's got his 2 best receivers back. I think he's going to be a top 2. I want to say top 1, but that's too bold. I think he's going to be a top 2 quarterback this week. Miami, the Dolphins, that's who the Rams are playing. Very tough matchup for passing offenses, but yeah, I'm riding the Stafford, Puka, Cooper Kupp train.
Right on. To counter your quarterback play there with Matthew Stafford, hey, maybe even your running back play, because we're going with the running type of quarterback for one of my bold predictions. I got Josh Allen going for 50 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns specifically. So just adding a little competition to that, top 2 QB spot. And then I'm going to take Zay Flowers for 70 yards, 1 touchdown, and 5 receptions. So yeah, precisely 5 receptions. So we'll see how these work.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not bold, but then you said 1 touchdown and precisely 5 catches, and Zay Flowers has not necessarily gotten a bunch of touchdowns, so I like it.
Fantastic. Well, that'll do it for us. Recapping week 9 and getting ready for week 10. So we wish all our listeners to just have good luck this week in fantasy football. And, we'll get ready to see y'all next week.
Looking forward to it. All right. See y'all.
See y'all.